3 years of love should have led to a celebration, not a battlefield. On the morning of their anniversary, Jacob woke up expecting a simple, warm message from Emily, maybe a photo, maybe a memory. Instead, he found a public post from her hinting that she had been settling for less, a message wrapped in bitterness and timed with surgical precision. Within minutes, comments from her friends flooded in, cheering her on, praising her for finally realizing her worth, and encouraging her to level up. Jacob stared at the screen, confused at first, then slowly feeling something inside him snap as the weight of 3 years collided with a single sentence. What he didn't know yet was that this one post would ignite a chain reaction, expose hidden truths, and unravel their entire relationship in front of everyone watching. Jacob didn't react immediately after seeing Emily's anniversary post. He sat there in silence, the glow of his phone lighting up the dim room, replaying every moment of their relationship in his head. 3 years of support, late-night drives, rent payments, groceries, vacations he saved for, emergencies he handled, suddenly overshadowed by one public sentence saying she had settled for less. He refreshed the post again, hoping he had misread it. He hadn't. And now there were even more comments, her friends cheering her on, some even tagging each other, laughing as if they had known all along that Emily could do better. Jacob felt the sting build in his chest, a mix of betrayal and humiliation. It wasn't just what she said, it was the timing, the audience, the intention behind it. But instead of exploding or defending himself, he typed one word: same. Then he logged off. For about an hour, there was silence. Then the notifications began. His friends texted him screenshots. Her cousins messaged him asking what was going on. And Emily, seeing his comment, sent him a string of angry messages demanding he take it down because it was making her look bad. Jacob didn't answer. Instead, he opened the folder on his phone he never thought he'd use, not for revenge, but for protection. A folder full of receipts, invoices, rent transfers, screenshots of conversations where she promised to pay him back next week, or after her business takes off. He remembered how his friends warned him months ago, telling him he was carrying too much of the relationship on his shoulders. He always defended her. He always said she just needed time to find her footing. But now she stood on that footing and used it to kick him publicly. So he made a decision. Not out of spite, but out of exhaustion. He chose transparency. Within minutes, he uploaded a calm, factual post outlining exactly what he had contributed during the 3 years they were together. No insults. No bitterness. Just numbers, screenshots, and timestamps. He ended the post with one line: "If I'm what you call less, then at least let the truth be complete." The internet erupted. Friends who had praised Emily minutes earlier suddenly quieted. A few even started asking her what she meant in her original post. Others accused her of using Jacob financially. Her comment section went from applause to interrogation. Emily panicked, replying to everyone that Jacob was lying, that they had agreed on things, that he was twisting the story. But Jacob had proof for every claim. And people saw it. Some of her friends messaged Jacob privately to apologize for jumping to conclusions. Others confronted Emily directly, asking why she had attacked a man who had clearly supported her. Emily, overwhelmed, tried to turn the narrative around by saying Jacob was weaponizing finances, but no one seemed convinced. Her original post, once filled with uplifting comments, was now a battlefield of arguments, disbelief, and accusations. Jacob watched it all unfold with a strange calmness. He didn't feel triumphant. He didn't feel proud. He simply felt done protecting someone who never protected him. And without realizing it, he had just triggered the first spark of a drama that was about to swallow both their lives whole. Emily showed up at Jacob's apartment that evening, pounding on the door with a mix of anger and desperation. He opened it slowly, already exhausted from the chaos of the day, but she pushed past him without waiting for an invitation. Her voice was raised before he could even close the door. She demanded he delete his post immediately, claiming it was humiliating her, damaging her reputation, and making people misunderstand their relationship. Jacob stayed calm, leaning against the counter as she paced around the living room. He asked her one simple question: why she posted what she did on their anniversary. Emily froze. For a moment, he thought she might actually tell the truth. But instead, she deflected, insisting that her post wasn't about him, that people were overreacting, and that it wasn't fair for him to attack her in return. Jacob pointed out that he never attacked her. He only posted facts, receipts, records, proof. She didn't respond to that. Instead, she shifted the argument again, saying he was being dramatic and emotional. He watched her spiral through excuses, each one thinner than the last, and something inside him finally clicked. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a moment of poor judgment. This was who she had chosen to be. He told her calmly that the relationship was over. Emily's rage evaporated instantly, replaced by panic so visible it caught him off guard. She asked where she was supposed to go. She reminded him that her apartment lease ended months ago, that she had moved in with him temporarily, and that she didn't have the savings to get a new place yet. She said it like it was his responsibility. Jacob shook his head, explaining that he wasn't kicking her out that second, but the relationship itself could not continue. Emily's eyes filled with tears, not from heartbreak but from fear. She admitted, almost accidentally, that she didn't have enough money to cover rent anywhere else. That her business wasn't making anything. That she had been planning to rely on him just a little longer, until she figured things out. Jacob realized then that she hadn't just taken advantage of his kindness. She had structured her life around depending on it. And she expected it to go on indefinitely. When he didn't waver, Emily switched tactics again, trying to guilt him, accusing him of abandoning her when she was at her lowest. But Jacob had spent years supporting her through lows she never lifted a finger to rise from. He told her she could stay for the night, but needed to start making arrangements. She didn't like that answer, but she could see he meant it. She left his apartment shortly after, slamming the door and sending one last text blaming him for destroying everything. Jacob sat alone afterward, staring at the silence she left behind. It wasn't relief he felt. It wasn't sadness either. It was the realization that he had carried a relationship alone for far too long. And now, for the first time in 3 years, he was no longer willing to do it. Emily returned 2 days later, but this time she didn't come alone. Jacob heard loud voices outside before the knock even landed on his door. When he opened it, Emily was standing there with 2 of her friends and a man he had never seen before, tall, overconfident, and smirking like he'd been rehearsing a confrontation in the mirror. Emily announced that his name was Marcus, and that he was helping her move her business inventory back. Jacob blinked, confused, because Emily had never stored any business inventory in his apartment. Before he could ask, Emily pushed forward, accusing him loudly of stealing her products, her merchandise, and some vague supplies she claimed were worth thousands. Her friends nodded along, adding dramatic gasps and comments to support her story. Marcus folded his arms, as if daring Jacob to challenge them. Jacob stepped aside, letting them talk, and calmly asked Emily to list exactly what she believed he had taken. She rattled off items, skincare bundles, branded packaging, bulk orders she claimed she had purchased for resale. Jacob didn't interrupt. He went to his office, opened the same folder he'd used before, and returned with printed invoices. Every single item she listed was on those receipts, all paid for with his card. He handed the papers to Marcus first, just to watch his expression shift from confidence to confusion. Then to Emily, whose face went pale. She tried to argue that they had an agreement, one she suddenly couldn't remember the details of, and her friends began looking at each other nervously. Jacob simply told them that they could take anything Emily had purchased herself, but since she hadn't bought any of it, there was nothing for her to take. Emily's voice cracked as she insisted that he must have thrown things away or hidden them. Marcus stepped back slightly now, clearly sensing the embarrassment creeping in. One of Emily's friends finally asked her quietly why her name wasn't on any of the documents. Emily snapped at her, telling her she didn't understand the business model. Jacob almost felt sorry for her in that moment, almost. Her entire facade of being a self-made boss babe, of running a thriving online brand, was unraveling right there on his doorstep. Her friends, who once bragged about her success, were seeing the truth. Every order, every supply, every launch she boasted about was funded by Jacob. And she had never told them. What surprised him most was when Emily's older sister called moments later, having heard the commotion from a group chat. She asked Jacob directly if the rumors were true, if he had really been funding Emily's business all along. Jacob said yes. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. There was a long silence on the phone before her sister let out a sigh that sounded like years of frustration. Emily's family had believed she was financially stable, that she was building something real. Now they were realizing it was all inflated ego and borrowed money. Emily broke down crying then, but it wasn't guilt, it was exposure. She had lost control of the narrative. Her friends stepped away from her. Marcus muttered that he didn't sign up for this drama and left the group entirely. Emily stood alone in the hallway, makeup streaked, excuses gone, watching everything she'd constructed collapse in a single afternoon. Jacob didn't say anything else. He simply closed the door, knowing that this was only the beginning of the fallout she had created herself. Emily's life began unraveling faster than she could control. What happened at Jacob's apartment spread through her social circles within hours. People she once bragged to were now whispering about her, asking questions she had no real answers for. The first blow came from the MLM team she had been proudly promoting for months. Her upline messaged her privately, asking why she had been reporting inflated sales numbers and why multiple customers were complaining that their orders never arrived. Emily tried to blame shipping delays, then suppliers, then personal issues, but nothing convinced them. By the end of the week, she was quietly removed from their group chats and stripped of her title. Losing that title meant losing the one thing she had used to convince others she was successful. The second blow came from Marcus. After the embarrassing scene at Jacob's place, he tried to keep his distance, but Emily kept texting him, insisting they had a connection. When he finally agreed to talk, he told her plainly that he couldn't date someone who relied on other people to survive. He said he didn't want to end up being her next Jacob. Emily was stunned. She had assumed Marcus liked her confidence, her independence, her ambition, never realizing that those traits were things she had only performed online. He blocked her the same night. The third blow was from her family. After speaking with Jacob, her sister held a long, uncomfortable family meeting without her. By the time Emily arrived, they were waiting with printed screenshots, questions, and disappointment carved into their faces. They asked why she had lied about her income, why she hadn't told them she couldn't afford rent, why she had made them believe she was running a thriving business. Emily argued, saying they didn't understand, that she was on the verge of success, that they were being unsupportive. But no one bought it anymore. Her parents told her she needed to get a real job, something steady, something that didn't rely on selling a dream. Emily stormed out, but the words clung to her. She knew they were right. The fourth blow came when she tried to apply for housing assistance. She listed Jacob as someone who could verify her financial situation, assuming that he would stay quiet or feel guilty enough to help. But when the caseworker contacted him, Jacob told the truth. Emily had not been contributing financially and had no stable income. As a result, her application was denied. Emily called him screaming, accusing him of sabotaging her and leaving her homeless. Jacob reminded her that honesty wasn't sabotage. He ended the call before she could twist the narrative again. From there, her social life began collapsing piece by piece. The friends who once hyped her posts and shared her content began unfollowing or distancing themselves. Some were tired of the drama. Others felt deceived after realizing she had lied about her success for years. In group chats, she became the topic no one defended anymore. Emily found herself sleeping on an air mattress in her cousin's spare room, scrolling through old pictures of the life she used to pretend she had. Every notification made her flinch. Another comment, another message, another reminder that the image she built was cracking from every angle. And underneath all of it, for the first time in years, she felt the weight of her own choices pressing in with nowhere left to hide. Emily's desperation reached a new level when she realized that her old tactics, denial, blaming others, redirecting the narrative, no longer worked in private. So she turned to the only place she still had some control: social media. One night, after hours of rehearsing in the mirror, she went live on TikTok with puffy eyes, soft lighting, and a trembling voice. She told her followers she had survived financial abuse, that she had been controlled, restricted, and manipulated by a partner who used money to trap her. She sobbed between sentences, describing herself as a woman rebuilding from the ashes, brave enough to speak out despite the fear. People who hadn't seen the drama unfold believed her at first. Some commenters sent hearts, encouraging words, offers to help. The sympathy fueled her confidence. She followed it with a GoFundMe titled "Starting Over After Financial Abuse," accompanied by curated photos of her looking broken, yet resilient. Within hours, donations trickled in. She promoted it aggressively, stitching her own videos with trending soundtracks and captions about empowerment and survival. But the problem was that the internet remembered everything. It didn't take long before someone stitched her video with screenshots of Jacob's financial receipts. Another user compiled clips from her old Instagram stories where she bragged about getting her man to invest in her business. Then someone else pointed out that she had posted selfies at brunch the same day she claimed she was unable to leave the house due to emotional trauma. The cracks widened. People began calling her out in the comments. Some demanded she close the GoFundMe, accusing her of scamming sympathetic strangers. Others asked why she never mentioned financial abuse until after being exposed. Emily tried to block the negative commenters, but they kept returning with backup accounts, spreading the truth faster than she could delete it. It escalated when a women's advocacy organization publicly commented on one of her videos. They wrote politely but firmly that misusing the term financial abuse harms real victims and undermines legitimate advocacy work. They asked her to reconsider her narrative and take responsibility for misleading her audience. The comment went viral. Overnight, Emily's comment sections turned hostile. People demanded refunds for her GoFundMe. Some threatened to report her for fraud. A few who had once defended her apologized publicly to Jacob. But Emily doubled down. She made another video claiming she was being silenced by powerful people, implying that Jacob and the organization were working together to destroy her. That only made things worse. Creators with large followings began dissecting her posts, explaining the inconsistencies, exposing her manipulations. They compared timelines, receipts, screenshots, and clips from her live streams, creating detailed breakdowns that millions saw. Within days, Emily went from being pitied to being labeled a manipulator, a liar, and a grifter. Her GoFundMe was suspended after multiple reports. TikTok flagged several of her videos for misinformation. Brands she had once hoped to collaborate with quietly blocked her. The final blow came when someone leaked that she had been planning to release a paid "Spot the Red Flags" course based on a story she had fabricated. The internet erupted with laughter, disbelief, and anger. Emily shut off all her notifications, but the damage kept spreading. Her attempt to reclaim sympathy had backfired completely, leaving her reputation in ruins and her lies permanently recorded across the platforms she once used to build her image. The fallout from Emily's online unraveling didn't stop at angry comments or suspended fundraisers. Real-world consequences began landing one after another, each heavier than the last. The first shock arrived in the form of an official letter. Her GoFundMe activity, combined with inconsistent claims about her financial situation, triggered a review from the tax authorities. They flagged her account for suspicious income streams, missing documentation, and undeclared earnings from her supposed business. Emily stared at the notice, hands shaking, realizing she had no clean paperwork to defend herself with. Every business expense she had posted online was funded by Jacob. Every sale she bragged about was fabricated or unpaid. Now she had to explain all of it. The second wave of consequences came from the people who had purchased her short-lived Spot the Red Flags course. Some had paid for early access. Others had donated to her GoFundMe and then realized the entire story was collapsing publicly. Over 20 people emailed her demanding refunds. A few threatened small claims court. Some even contacted the platforms she used, reporting her for running misleading promotions. Emily tried to respond at first, offering partial refunds or long explanations, but the requests kept coming faster than she could manage. Within days, her payment processor froze her account due to unusual dispute activity. She couldn't withdraw anything. She couldn't receive anything. She couldn't even close the account until the investigations were completed. The third blow hit her when she tried applying for jobs. Her cousin encouraged her to get something stable, retail, front desk, office assistant, anything to get her back on her feet. Emily reluctantly submitted applications to dozens of companies. But several hiring managers recognized her name from viral videos dissecting her lies. Others Googled her, saw the controversy, and quietly declined her. Some companies didn't even send rejection emails. They simply removed her from consideration. Emily cried in her cousin's bathroom after receiving the fifth automated rejection in one day. She wasn't just fighting to rebuild her reputation. She was fighting against a digital record that wouldn't disappear. The fourth consequence arrived when she returned to social media to check on her dwindling follower count. She noticed messages from former friends demanding she stop using their photos in old promotional posts. Others threatened to expose more private details if she kept lying. Her phone buzzed constantly, notifications she didn't want but couldn't stop. At one point, she turned it off for an entire weekend, trying to breathe, trying to think, trying to figure out how everything had collapsed so catastrophically. By the end of the month, she had burned bridges with her family, lost her online platforms, accumulated debt she couldn't explain, and had no partner, no income, no brand, and no image left to maintain. With no options remaining, she accepted the only job offer she received, a low-pay social media manager role for a small local business. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't empowering. It was survival. While she struggled to rebuild even the smallest pieces of her life, Jacob, on the other side of the city, moved forward with a clarity he hadn't felt in years. His job promoted him. His social circle grew. He traveled, reconnected with friends, and rediscovered peace he never knew he'd lost. Occasionally, he still received late-night messages from Emily, long paragraphs, apologies, promises, manifesting quotes about twin flames reconnecting. He never responded. He had closed that chapter completely. And for the first time, Emily was forced to face a reality she had spent years running from. Every consequence surrounding her now was a result of the choices she made, not the man she tried to blame. Jacob's life settled into a calm he hadn't felt in years. He no longer woke up to chaos, accusations, or emotional landmines waiting in his messages. He spent his mornings in quiet, his evenings with friends, and his days building a career that kept opening new doors. Freedom felt unfamiliar at first, then addictive. Meanwhile, Emily drifted through the ruins of her own making, cycling between regret, denial, and scattered attempts to rebuild what had never truly existed. She watched Jacob's life from afar, scrolling through updates she pretended not to care about, convincing herself that one day he would realize they were meant to reconnect. But Jacob never looked back. He deleted old photos, archived memories, and let the past fade without ceremony. There was no grand goodbye, no dramatic final confrontation, just a quiet final acceptance that he owed her nothing more. What remained was a simple truth he carried forward. Letting go of someone who weighs you down isn't cruelty. It's survival. And sometimes the greatest victory is choosing yourself after years of choosing someone who would never choose you back.